edition of Facing the Middle East, our news program where we focus on issues from that region, uncovering stories and context, and meeting people you want to know. We bring you a glimpse of the secrets, the drama, the conflict, and the women and youth who are leading change. Today we focus on the historic Abraham Accords, the landmark pacts between Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Sudan, which is reshaping the region's political landscape. Since August, countless cooperation agreements in business and tourism have already been signed. We begin with a visit by Bahraini leaders of the King Hamad Global Center for Peaceful Coexistence, who visited Israel openly and signed a memorandum of understanding with the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. The agreement presages programs bringing together Arabs and Jews and the people of the Middle East. While I was in Bahrain, I had the pleasure of speaking with Shaikh Khalid Al Khalifa, who explained the goals of the Coexistence Center in Bahrain as Peace for Prosperity kicked off.
See, some countries make tolerance and peaceful coexistence centers to have the peaceful coexistence living in their country. In Bahrain, it is just the opposite. We have the peaceful coexistence for many years, hundreds of years. And we would like to reflect this to the world through a center.
This didn't start today. If you go through the streets of Manaman, you see many Shia and Sunni mosques. They're living side by side. Yet in many countries, they're at odds with each other.
Yeah. In fact, you're right. In about 1 kilometer of diameter, you will find it is congested with all the religions, sects, races. It is not just the religions that you're talking about, even races. Because of one religion, you might have different races. If you talk about Christians, for instance, in Bahrain, you'll find Christians of European origin, of Indian, of Asians. There's also the races that really creating this unique diversity in the society. So in fact we did not created it. It is there, but the willingness of the leadership throughout these hundreds of years made it real and made it stable and visible to everybody. So peaceful coexistence is a part of our society. You cannot really, as a Bahraini, live without any other religion, without any other sects. I was brought up as in Manama, in the same area that you are talking about. Our neighbors are Hindus, Shias, Sunnis, Christians, Jewish community, and I was myself studied in a Christian school, the Heart Secret School. So at that time, nobody asked why a Muslim boy would study in a Christian school, because we talk about religion. Jews, I mean the Jewish community here in Bahrain, also the Jews as a whole, and Muslims, they have no problems at all. I mean, you have, even in Islam, we have this, to say this, you have your religion and I have my religion. It is in the Quran itself. It means, in another word, that you can live together. Because in politics, we have differences even in the Arab countries, between Arab countries. We have not only different policies, but a lot of interferences from one country to another country. If you talk about what even the GCC today, we have Qatar have different agenda, and there's sort of conflict. Although that we are GCC countries, although that we are Arabs, we are Muslims, and we speak the same language, but in the end, and through politics we have differences, we have conflict. Therefore, if you look at the Israeli-Arabic conflict, it is from a political point of view, but from the religious point of view, there's no differences, there's no conflict at all. We have lived with Jews in Bahrain, for instance, for many years, neighbors. I have our neighbor, Ezra, when I was a child, he comes to my house and we eat together.
That's Jewish.
So there's no difference. There is no conflict. And I remember that even when I was small, I mean, when I was young as a child, they said he's a Jew, this Ezra. And I didn't know what Jew means. In fact, I didn't know what Muslim means. So that's why I think it is just separate religion from politics, and you'll be safe.
While in Israel, the Bahrainis were asked to reflect on the Abraham Accords. Fleur Hassan-Nahoum, deputy mayor of Jerusalem, greeted the group in her city, overlooking the Mount of Olives.
Well, we're so thrilled to see a wonderful mission of people who are every day promoting peace and coexistence come to the city of peace and coexistence. And it's been, for me, a real privilege to show them the best of our city. We still have a lot of work to do. We need wonderful partners.
We found, like in Bahrain, there's acceptance of the peace process and peaceful coexistence. We find that the Israeli people are also on the other side to activate this great project, which is a historic move that is recorded to the leaders in the world today.
We can have good relationship to achieve our goals of peaceful coexistence, because this university, since 1925, is one of the oldest here in the area, has in fact established a good reputation for the peaceful coexistence, especially here for Arabs, Muslims, and Jewish communities.
When you work people to people, person to person, human to human, that's where the magic of peace does happen. And I think that it's wonderful to see politicians after many decades are finally on the same page and listening to the will of the people and what's really in people's hearts.
It's exciting to see the speed at which these goals and hopes are translating into action. You can learn by following themedialine.org.
Do you trust your news sources? Are you tired of one-sided reporting? You need to know the Media Line to know the Middle East.
The world needs news you can trust.
The Media Line's reporters are in the streets of Cairo, Jerusalem, Ramallah, and Sana'a, bringing you stories in context which shape your views and decisions. The Media Line is the first independent, non-profit American news agency covering the Middle East. Now in its 20th year, it's the best-kept secret in the news business. Discover for yourself why the Media Line is relied upon by government officials and media outlets worldwide.
Bringing you the stories which impact your lives.
Support the trusted Mideast news source today by going to themedialine.org. You need to know the Media Line to know the Middle East.
Women comprise about half of the Middle East's population and have shown how creative and tenacious they can be in building not only their communities, but their cities and countries. You just got a glimpse of Fleur, who is one of the many amazing women you will meet on Facing the Middle East. What can you tell us about the run-up to the Abraham Accords? The worst-kept secret in the region is the many contacts between Israelis and Emiratis that have been underway for years. What was the tipping point that brought such contacts public and triggered this new era?
You're 100% right. I think there was a very under-the-radar normalization already for a number of years. In fact, we estimate that there was probably about 250 Israeli businesses working in the UAE. And you have to understand, when we talk about working in the UAE, finding ways around the kind of, the barriers that used to exist. I've got a friend who's a very successful entrepreneur who sells some type of a medical device. She told me that she used to have to send it to a warehouse, take everything out of the box, change the labels from made in Israel, and then they could sell. And then, so we knew that was going on the whole time. Back in June, my co-founder, Dorian Barak, who's already been working for about 10 years in the region, said to me, Fleur, I'm telling you, this is the new frontier. We have to do something about this. So I said, why don't we create a business council? And we did back then in June, because we'd been talking about it for about a year and a half. we neither of us imagined that 3 months later, 2 months later, we were going to have these accords. So there was normalization. The normalization was definitely picking up speed, but I don't think anybody imagined that the peace accords or the normalization accords would happen so quickly, one fine day, without anybody leaking anything before. As a journalist, I mean, were you aware that anything was coming? Oh, you were?
Well, I think that you would look at it, and I think as an observer, as a journalist, you saw things were heading that way.
They were heading.
Nobody expected the dynamic to take place when it did.
Exactly. Nobody was saying, oh, by next week there's going to be accords. Yes, it was accelerating. I agree with you. So that's kind of caught us by surprise. And when that happened, we worked very hard. Within 2 days, we already had an online platform. And we went out into the world and said, this is the place where we're going to be building the bridges for businesses. And within a few weeks, we have 3,000 signed up members who are telling us what areas of business they're interested in.
Give me an example of some of the things that have closed. Have you seen business-to-business closing due to this?
We've had companies closing on water technology with companies there in the UAE. Lots of different, even non-business bridges that we're building. For example, we are creating a lot of value with our events that are creating a lot of bridges. Ultimately, we believe that our job is to open the door, to create the bridges, and then the free market will do its own work.
Many naysayers will say that Bahrain was never at war with Israel.
And neither was the UAE.
Okay. So do you think they're belittling the scope of the Abraham Accords?
You always have the people who want to belittle anything good in the world. And those people, for whatever reasons, because they hate Trump, because they hate Bibi, whatever it is that drives this negativity, how can anybody say peace is not good? Peace is great. I speak with the Arab community of Jerusalem all the time. The people I speak to are certainly very excited about it. Of course, what you're going to be hearing is the Palestinian media machine against them, because it goes against their own political interests, the political interests of a leadership that's given absolutely nothing to their people, that's losing the faith of their people. And so of course they have to be naysayers. We all know also a lot of journalists are going to say, well, I mean, if you could just look at the certain publications, I'm not going to mention names, every day there's a negative story about the UAE and the UAE and Israel. These are the people who are barking and staying behind. The people who are moving forward are the people who see the positivity in this, see the mutual prosperity in this, and see that even for the Palestinians, this is a fantastic move.
You're going to see a new president. President Biden is going to come in. Do you think that will alter the status quo?
I really hope not. I've been speaking to a lot of people who are close to Biden, have worked with Biden in the past. And, people tell me a few things. First of all, not me, but the Gulf is completely panicked about it because they have post-trauma from the Obama years. They tell me, these are my friends in the Gulf, that during the Obama years, it was very clear to them that Obama chose Iran over the Gulf. He was a bad president for the Gulf countries. This is not me, this is not Israel saying. This is what my friends in different positions in the Gulf are telling me. And so they're a little bit post-traumatic and they're concerned. Having said that, and this is what I'm telling them from the people that I've spoken to, Biden is not Obama. And he has a different way of looking at things. We have to wait and see. What I do believe is that the momentum is running by itself now. So nobody can stop the momentum. The doors were open. This was really Trump and Kushner's real pièce de résistance of his presidency in terms of international relations.
To what extent do you think the new relationship between Israel and Bahrain will assist with sagging numbers in tourism?
But for the first time in history, we're going to be having Muslim tourism. As we've had evangelical and Christian tourism for many, many years, we've enjoyed that. We've, enjoyed welcoming them to our city.
Fleur, explain what you have in mind there. I mean, because this is new.
It's completely new. What I have in mind is this. Everybody knows that Temple Mount, or Haram al-Sharif for the Muslims, is the third holiest Muslim site after Mecca and Medina. Every Emirati that I spoke to when I was there have on their bucket list to go and pray. This is their pilgrimage. This is what they want to do. Therefore, Jerusalem has already got a very strong brand in the Gulf countries as a place that a must-see visit. So that's exciting to me, because what that means from a tourism perspective is that the anchor of their trip will be Jerusalem and not Tel Aviv. When Christian groups come to Israel, 4-5 days they are anchored in Jerusalem.
Are there programs that you can speak of that are happening right now? They're helping to shape the economy for East Jerusalem.
My focus is on the quality employment, because I truly believe that we will have peace the day that there's economic opportunity for all in the same way. People will not be angry if they are making great salaries, if their businesses are flourishing. This is a way that we can embrace the Arab population in the city.
Where do you see Jerusalem heading in terms of the women's sector? The Haredi women, the Arab women, they're all very different.
Absolutely.
Looking at it over the course of the next few years.
Well, I believe, as you know, I also am the co-founder of the Gulf Israel Women's Forum, which you covered so well recently. And we truly believe that women are peace builders and that women are change makers, because women are mothers and women are the center of their family.
Fleur, Hassan-Nahoum, you too are a wife, a mother.
Absolutely.
Where do you see yourself in the next 5 years?
Oh God, in politics you really can't predict, because it's such a
Your hopes?
Crazy. I believe that my strengths are in representing Israel in the world. Not just because I speak a few languages, but also because I understand different cultures, have been raised in different cultures. Because I'm a Sephardi or Mizrahi woman, my mother's from Morocco, I also believe I have a certain affinity and understanding of the Arab world. So I will be anywhere my country needs me to advance Israel's image abroad, business interests abroad, and diplomatic interests abroad. And the rest is up to the electorate.
Fleur, thank you very much for joining me here on Facing the Middle East. And what's important is that looking at women, one woman at a time, and seeing that change can happen, and that's all you need to hear.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Felice.
We pride ourselves on context at the Media Line. Bureau Chief Mohammed Al-Qasim joins you for our series of explainers on the Middle East conflicts.
The Middle East, a region often identified by its conflicts. To begin to understand, let's take a look at the major clashes in the region. As the Biden administration prepares to assume office, the Middle East landscape it inherits is markedly different than it was during the 8 years as vice president. Although the Trump brokered peace deals between Israel and 4 Arab nations alter the dynamics of alliances, the tinderbox fueled by 3 raging conflicts and 6 failing states provides a short fuse to a major regional war. For more than 7 decades, the most recognizable of Mideast conflicts has been between the Israelis and Palestinians. Violence between the two sides erupts almost daily, and despite recent diplomatic breakthroughs in the region, negotiations for a permanent peace have so far failed to yield results, except for the brief sliver of hope provided by the 1993 Oslo Accords. The parties have been unable to solve the long list of sticking points: Jerusalem, settlements, and borders through periodic negotiations. President Donald Trump introduced his vision for peace in early 2020. It was warmly welcomed by Israel and swiftly rejected by the Palestinian Authority. Israel has since agreed to normalization with 4 Arab states, applauded by many, but something the Palestinians say will prolong the conflict. Let's move on to Syria. The conflict in Syria erupted when a group of teenage boys painted "The people demand the fall of the regime" on buildings in the southern city of Daraa. In the ensuing decade, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad used an iron fist to defend his rule. More than 500,000 Syrians died, and over 5 million of a total population of 22 million fled the country. Compounding the tragedy, Syria's civil war involved many global and regional players. Russia and Iran backed the Assad government, while the United States and Europe backed the rebels. Meanwhile, the brutal Islamic State organization ISIS seized control of a large swath of Syrian land to create caliphate, a state ruled by their own interpretation of Islamic law. It appears for now that President Assad will remain in power with the help of Russia, Iran, and its Lebanese proxy, Hezbollah.
Please go to themedialine.org for complete interviews and explainers.
News needs trained journalists. The Media Line, the first American nonprofit news agency covering the Middle East, has mentored scores of students from prestigious American universities and around the globe. We are one of the best kept secrets. Universities are partners. Students receive credit. In order to bring you trusted news, we need support for our future journalists. Please make your tax-deductible gift today. Go to themedialine.org.
Dreams, our special segment devoted to youth, looks at our future, created by those shaping it. On today's program, we focus on an organization, Tech to Peace, which was founded by 3 young people to bridge the gap between Israelis and Palestinians through technology. The Media Line's Maya Margit spoke with Tomer Cohen and Adnan Jaber.
Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and how Tech to Peace started?
We came out with the idea of let's maybe try to bring together people, not just through dialogue, but also through high-tech seminars. So let's maybe try to create a very weird mixture of high-tech workshops alongside with dialogue. After the pilot in 2018, we won the Israeli Hope Prize by the spirit of the President of Israel, Reuven Rivlin. And by then, Google, Microsoft, MIT, and now also McKinsey and other big names he joined us along the way in order to create a real change in the Middle East.
What kind of programs does Tech to Peace offer for people?
Half of the time it's about high-tech. Every participant choose her or his own track, if it's programming, mobile app development, and etc. And the other half of the time it's dialogue. After a few days, when they're becoming already friends, so we start also to talk about the most painful experiences, about Nakba and the Independence Day, about the Holocaust, about checkpoints, about everything.
What are some of the concrete projects that you've helped realize during your time with Tech to Peace?
This year, I organized a hackathon in Jerusalem with my friend Jonathan Arnon. And we called it Jerusalemites Go to Hack, and it was 20 people creating things together, and it was a successful hackathon.
What is your vision of the future for Tech to Peace?
So we have a very concrete and very clear goal. We want in 5 to 10 years to have thousands of Palestinians and Israelis that communicate, that have partnership, that have understanding and empathy to the other side in a very vibrant community. In 5 to 10 years, one of them going to be a mayor of a town in Palestine or in Israel. It's already going to make a huge change because we target those very talented leaders.
As we highlight Tech to Peace on this program, we brought Adnan Jaber into studio. Thank you so much for joining us in studio today.
Thank you.
You grew up in Shuafat, you had studied in the United States, and you were involved in the World Economic Forum and TEDx. How did you end up on the board of Tech to Peace?
I was an IT student at the Arab American University of Jenin. I'm about to graduate, and I was preparing myself to get a job in Israel, high-tech in Tel Aviv, well-paying job. So I felt that I needed this experience in technical skills and cultural to be able to work with my, let's say, cousins. And that's when I started to look for programs to prepare me to get involved in those high-tech companies, and I found the advertisement of Tech to Peace on Facebook. So I followed it, I joined it, I applied for it, and after 2 weeks I got accepted. Then I take my first Egged bus ever from Jerusalem to the town of Yeruham, where the seminar of Tech to Peace was happening. There I met the fellow participants there from all over Israel and Palestine, and I loved the experience of the 2 weeks that I had there at Tech to Peace. I wanted to volunteer with them and to bring my friends to that program too, because I've learned a lot from it, both tech and culture.
How did that program change the way you see Israelis?
Before it, my interaction with Israelis in Jerusalem was only in Aroma and American Eagle. That's all the interaction I had before. I knew nothing about them, only the stories I heard from the Palestinian narrative side, and I was curious to know them more because I'm living right next to them, and I had so many questions in Tech to Peace, and they answered lots of many questions. Obviously, it's not black and white.
Cut to 2020. Where are you?
I like to call myself a social entrepreneur. I love sports a lot, so I co-founded a fitness mobile application, and I'm working hard on it right now. And beside that, I'm volunteering with the World Economic Forum. I love this community of global shapers in Jerusalem. It's youth leaders ages between 20 to 30, and they're working on creating solutions to the world's most pressing issues.
You're involved with a startup in the Palestinian territories. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, it's a fitness training mobile application, Yalla Riyada. I co-founded it with my friends. In this fitness application, you'll find training plans and nutrition plans that will help you achieve your fitness goals.
The Palestinian Authority often has asked young Israeli Arabs and Palestinians not to do business at the moment with Israelis. Do you think that this is something that should not be happening? Do you think this is something that is a hindrance to moving forward between the Israelis and Palestinians, both in terms of the peace process and in terms of day-to-day life?
It's not an easy question, but if we want a better future in this region for both, I think there must be collaborative businesses together. That's how people can get along and trust each other more and more. And that's how you build for peace.
Do you have friendships with Israelis today?
Yes, I do.
Because you might have...
Than what I expected 3 years ago?
That's or even as a youth.
I was more curious. I had some stereotypes in my head. But as I said before, it's not black or white. So many different people with so many different beliefs and missions. It is different than what I believed before. In school, we have been taught that all Israel, all Jews are, let's say, the people who took your land, the people who pushed the refugees out, and still we see many like settlements and accusations against Palestinians, but it's not every Israeli wants this. It's not what everyone in Israel believe in or want to do. Not necessarily.
This segment, Dreams, belongs to our youth. Adnan, what are your dreams in the next 5 years?
I would love to succeed in my startup, influence more people to live healthier lifestyles. I would love to see myself living in a city and in a country that sees peace, that always wanted. And I would love to live on a planet that is environmentally healthy.
Adnan Jaber, thank you for joining us here on Facing the Middle East.
Shukran.
Thank you for joining us on Facing the Middle East for our premier program where we unlock the hidden truths of the world's most contentious region. Join us at themedialine.org daily for news you need to know and trust. If you wish to suggest a Youth for Our Dream segment, contact us at editor@themedialine.org. Until next time, stay safe, stay healthy, and let's hope for a world with peace.